And we're back. And we're back once again. And welcome to Lakers Fast Break University. This is Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, of course, the great folks at LakersBall.com, and of course, Mr. Joe Soros' own business, Simblades, Simblades with the Y.com. If you need your lawn transformed into something much more beautiful than it is today, please go ahead and support Joe Soro at simblades.com. Plus, if you like what we do, also check out Lakerholics.com. Go ahead and join the conversation there today, where they do extra studying right there for you at Lakerholics.com. That's great, great coursework there. Plus, our good friends of the Hoopheads Podcast Network. And if you can also support what I do at the Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and of course, right here at the Lakers Fast Break, we are now all over the place on social media: YouTube, Trovo, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So if you can support all that and subscribe today on YouTube so you get the latest notifications on when we go live on the air with a new class at Lakers History 101, or anything else we do, like our post games, each and every post game, plus also as well NBA observations and our upcoming trivia shows as well. It is sincerely appreciated. Well, class is now in session. As we attend class today, good to have you students here. Appreciate everyone attending in such a prompt fashion. I look forward to our conversation and the lecture today provided by at least one, if not hopefully two, attending professors. We'll see about the other professor here hopefully in a bit, but I have right now a man right here who's willing to give a lecture a on how a towel of all things changed the course of Lakers history, because a towel did change the course of Lakers history, and that is a towel thrown by Robert Horry, at that time a member of the Phoenix Suns, who threw it at his coach, displeased at I guess, the way he was being treated, had a long-standing resentment of Danny Ainge back to their days as far as when they were playing, both of them, and it led to a situation where there was a conflict of interests, and of course led to a towel being thrown from Robert Horry into the face of Coach Danny Ainge, which led to a suspension and an immediate, almost immediate, four-player trade soon after to the Los Angeles Lakers, where the Lakers got Robert Horry and Joe Klein. And of course, we know it didn't happen right away for the Lakers, but Robert Horry became a key member and a clutch member of the Lakers going forward. And here today to discuss TowelGate, the circumstances around it, and also as well, once Robert Horry did get here, how he helped become a pivotal player in the future of the Los Angeles Lakers and their first three-peat of the century. I'm hoping that there'll be another one, but yes, at least one three-peat has taken place this century, and he was a major part of it. He's a good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check him out every time he's here giving a lecture, or he's just hanging around talking about the Lakers post games. It is the madman from Toronto, the guy who just can't get out of Toronto traffic unless he's here to teach classes. It is Professor Sean Grice, the Magic Man. Good to have you here, my friend. You asked for an impromptu class being held today, so I give you the floor, my friend. It is TowelGate, and how one towel changed the course of Lakers history forever.
Absolutely, Gerald. Not only did the towel change the Lakers' history, subsequently, it changed the history of just about every person involved in the incident. Um, for context purposes, the Podfather was correct. Before Robert Horry had even been traded to the Phoenix Suns, there was already animosity between him and Ainge. If you flash back to a very contested, very bitter series between the Phoenix Suns and the Houston Rockets. For context purposes, Danny Ainge was normally the player that the Phoenix Suns chose to pass out of TV timeouts or timeouts. The reason for that is twofold. One, Ainge was an adept passer, and
Mhm.
two is he was a former Major League Baseball pitcher as well. So you usually had confidence that Ainge wouldn't throw a bad pass. In this instance, there was an incident that Danny Ainge threw an inbound pass right into Mario Ellie's face, and that caused the Houston Rockets to, instead of winning game 4, they decided they were going to hurt Danny Ainge whenever possible. They gave up the game to hurt Ainge. Robert Horry has said that Mario Ellie is one of his closest friends, and that's when the animosity b- began to brew between the two. Um, Robert Horry, before he gets traded to the Phoenix Suns, has already established himself as a clutch playoff performer. He hit a big shot in a game 7 against the Seattle Supersonics. Now the Sonics ended up winning this game and the series, but Horry hit a big shot. As you also remember, Podfather, he also broke the backs of the Orlando Magic in Game 3 of the NBA Finals, where he hit a big three with the Rockets up 101. And all of a sudden it's 104, 100, and Shaq and Penny are stunned. And it's a backbreaking 3-0 lead for the Rockets. And of course, we know they went on to sweep the series.
Yes.
So now we move forward.
Yes.
August 19th, 1996. The
Mhm.
Houston Rockets, trying to be a last gas contender, make a very bad trade in retrospect.
Mhm.
They trade Sam Cassell, Robert Horry, Chucky Brown, and Mark Bryant to the Phoenix Suns for Charles Barkley and filler.
Mhm.
Barkley ends up blowing out his quad, as you know, Gerald,
Yep.
and the Rockets just never became the contenders they once were. So the Phoenix Suns enter the 1996-97 season, and they have a very, very eerily similar 2012-2013 season that the Lakers do. They start out 0-8 in the regular season. And their coach at the time, Cotton Fitzsimmons, decides he's going to lethal weapon this. I've had enough of this, and I'm resigning. And so now Danny Ainge has to come from the big chair to the coach's seat.
Yes.
And he has a mixture of vets and young players. He has an elderly Kevin Johnson at point guard. He has a very young, green around the gills guard by the name of Steve Nash.
Mhm.
He's got a mixture of big guys, small guys. He's trying to find the right lineups. Eventually, he gets them on a winning streak. However, the pivotal moment for Danny Ainge and Robert Horry's relationship comes on a TNT game when the Phoenix Suns are playing the Boston Celtics. Now, Robert Horry is not playing a very good game. He's shot 1 of 4. He's playing listless defense, and the Suns just don't have it that night. So, Robert Horry is subbed out. But before he's subbed out, as he's walking towards the Phoenix Suns bench,
Mhm.
Danny Ainge says something to Robert Horry. Now, Gerald, I believe both men will go to their graves not revealing what Danny said and what Robert retorted back. But what we do know is that Robert Horry lost his cool and he threw a towel at Danny Ainge. Now, if you watch the replay, Danny is very shocked that he does this. He wasn't expecting that kind of reaction. And obviously, as a head coach of a basketball team, it's a very pivotal moment for him. And in the locker room, when it's all said and done and the game's over, Robert Horry apologizes. He stands up and he apologizes to Danny Ainge and the rest of the Suns locker room. But Jerry Colangelo isn't like you said, Gerald. He was suspended. Jerry Colangelo wasn't satisfied with just an apology. Now, under the CBA rules, he could only suspend him for a couple games.
2 games without pay. Yes.
Yes, but Colangelo had mentioned that barring the rules, he would have went old school. And Gerald, in your opinion, without a collective bargaining agreement with a union behind you, how many games would you suspend a player for that kind of outburst?
Probably would have been about 5 to 10.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably significant enough to make your point. So yeah, Gerald, like you said, their relationship at that point has completely soured, even though Robert Horry has apologized.
He apologized then and has apologized since.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has.
But
He's
he
also
did say on Twitter when he was confronted about it last year that he wishes a brick were in it as well. So he doesn't
yes.
regret his actions, but he
No,
has
he doesn't.
apologized.
He's apologetic for what he did.
But he does not regret it.
He does not regret it. No, but that's one of the authentic parts of Robert Horry is that he'll let you know exactly how he feels. If you want to know his opinion about something, just ask him. He'll give
Mhm.
you his truth. Um, but like you said, Gerald, Robert Horry gets traded to the Lakers. Now we don't know how Jerry West pulled this off, but somehow Jerry was always able to circle around other team's dysfunction and swoop in and make a move like this. It
And at
was
the
a Jerry
time,
West special.
I was a little bit upset. I understood Robert Ory was he's someone that 6'10", lanky, could play really good defense, could shoot the ball from the outside. He had a lot of these gifts, but he chose never to go ahead. And I think a lot of people expected more out of him. That expected him be a star player, had all the talent in the world, and chose to only be a rotational player at best. Now he served to be one of the greatest rotational players and most clutch players of all time, but we didn't know really at that time to
No.
that extent. We saw a player that many thought was underachieving at that point in time, and he was being traded. Let me get the specifics out there because I was really upset because I really enjoyed watching Cedric Ceballos
Oh,
on the Lakers.
I love said. I
I
love
understand.
watching said.
I understand about Cedric Ceballos and the other things that went on in regards to Cedric Ceballos, and that's for another day. We'll
Yeah.
talk about if
Yeah.
they've ever want to go into Cedric Ceballos on the
Absolutely.
deep dive. That's up to you, Professor. But
Yeah.
I missed Cedric Ceballos and the instant offense he could bring. And at the time, I thought, we're getting this underachieving player who has so much more skill to his game. And I understand the Empire, Jeff. Good, I like the way you're phrasing it. He sacrificed his game after leaving Houston, and you didn't realize at the time is that that's the way he wanted to play. Was he was playing more to a role as a role player? He was the definitive role player at the time. A lot of people still at that time saw him as an underachieving player, such as myself. So it was great to see him become adapt to that role, adapt to the role he was wanted to go ahead and play out. It knew he wanted to be more an integral part of the team in different ways, and was able to utilize that for the years to come.
Oh, 100%. His 7 championships, that's the most championships ever won by a player that's not a Boston Celtic. So he it's it I guess people can go to debate, But
Yeah.
as far as the playoffs are concerned, I think he's a GOAT role player, honestly. But you know, fortunately on that team, Gerald, he we didn't know it at the time, but he was the missing piece.
Yeah, we didn't know. We didn't know, and it took a couple years for the whole team to gel at that time because he got traded
Yes,
in '96, and it we really didn't start seeing the fruits of all these teams get together. And he did have an injured season in '98, '99 where he only
yep,
played 38 games, but we saw really him become an integral part of the team along with Kobe and Shaq finally coming
absolutely,
together in that night
absolutely.
in that '99 season. But Robert Ory, the player himself, coming out of college, I remember as I've talked before, as far as him, when he was a young player playing against Loyola Marymount in the NCAA tournament, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because he
Mhm,
was playing on Alabama,
yep.
and he got drafted into the NBA. It's just so much promise, so much talent. But as Empire Jeff TV said, he understood once he got into the league exactly where he needed to go and he needed to be.
Exactly. He understood that the part of being a professional is finding where you fit in,
Hmm.
and he just found himself to be a puzzle piece that fit in every situation he found himself in, except one, and that was the Phoenix Suns.
So let's
Um,
talk about that real quick. Let's talk about that and let's get into a little bit more detail because we have still quite a bit of time here in the class. Once
mhm.
again, it's Lakers fast break. It's Lakers history 101. We're covering TowelGate and how this towel in question, thrown at Danny Ainge by Robert Ory, led to becoming an integral piece with the Los Angeles Lakers. But again, like you said, it all emanated from some real heat when Robert Ory was traded to the Phoenix Suns. Can you go and elaborate more on it? Because I know you touched on it as far as the playoffs, Mario Ellie, his close friend, the ball being hit into his face. Obviously, a lot of dissension there. He's gone on record saying that the following game that they absolutely lost that game as a team, the Houston Rockets, because they were just trying to intentionally injure Danny Ainge, which tells you a lot about the game in the 1990s at that point in time. But please go ahead and elaborate more on Robert Ory leading up to that throne towel.
Yeah, absolutely, Gerald. And I encourage all our students to, if you have time, you can go through that game and see different segments where Danny Ainge is just getting the crap pounded out of him. I
Yeah.
mean, quite literally.
And which game
Um,
is this, clear to clarify?
yeah, it's game 4. It's game 4 of the Phoenix Sun. Excuse me, the Houston Rockets and the Phoenix Suns.
Yes. And this is
Yes,
1995. So there it
yes,
is.
yes.
Yes.
For clarification,
Mhm.
um, that was a very brutal game. And and watching the replay, it's very obvious that straight from the tip that like you said, Gerald, there was no intention of winning that game. They knew if they just hurt Danny Ainge as much as they could, they could live with the loss. Now,
Mhm.
that's tricky, especially when you're in the playoffs, but if you're a confident bunch, and they clearly were and had every right to be, you can pull something like that off. You know, I remember when Fish decided he was just going to make sure Luis Scola flew as far as he could down the court and he would live with the suspension. So we understand, you make a decision, you live with your decision. Danny Ainge decided he was going to hurt Mario Ellie, and he made a bad decision.
Well,
And
it's affected. Him. Okay, let's put
yeah,
aside the fact that
to put
he's
things in
as a GM.
perspective,
And as a GM, obviously, whether you love him or hate him, he's had a long line of success both in
yes,
Boston and now in Utah. Obviously, he's won that Rudy Gobert trade hands down with with the way that Walker Kessler has been playing so well. Plus, he's got a ton of
Absolutely.
draft picks
Absolutely.
and assets
Very
to go along
adept.
with it. Yeah, he revitalized that Utah team to do much better than what was expected out of him. And you can give him all the compliments or hate as you want as a GM, but as a player, he was a role player, obviously on Boston, Houston,
Phoenix,
Excuse me, I'm
Sacramento.
sorry, Boston, Phoenix, Sacramento, excuse me.
Yep.
And of course, we all know the dirty side of Danny Ainge as a player, the scuffles that he got into, the biting with Tree Rollins and things of that nature. So Danny Ainge was one of the least liked individuals in the league. And going into that playoff series, it was really something that I think a lot of people had to go ahead and put into question. You get Danny Ainge on the wrong side of, like you said, the Houston Rockets, and they made it their mission to go ahead and send a statement right to him.
Absolutely, Gerald. And Charles Barkley is also on record saying that he did not like what Danny Ainge did, even back then. But as a teammate, you got to stand by your teammates. But Charles Barkley said that when Mario Ellie got hit in the face, he saw the look on their bench, and he knew the series had changed, and he didn't think that. They had the metal to handle what the Rockets were going to dish out, and they didn't. They didn't. Um,
So let me ask you this, okay? Heading into a situation where where you talk, usually these days when you go ahead and make trades, you're usually consulting with the coaching staff. Can you get along with this player? What can you do for this player if he comes on your team? How does he evaluate as far as what you plan on? In fact, Darvin Ham, I'm sure he was asked repeatedly and extensively, what does he need to do, or what was he planning to do with Russell Westbrook? And we've seen the effect of that. What is he going to be doing with this, this player and this player and this player? So when the proposal comes about as far as trading Robert Horry to Phoenix, there obviously wasn't a very good line of communication between the player and the coach and the general manager. It was just an asset for an asset trade. I think a lot of the blame for TowelGate needs to go on the front office of both Houston, but primarily on Phoenix, because of the fact that understanding the vicious playoff battle that they had, there's still some hard feelings there. You got to go ahead and walk up to these guys and say, hey, you know what? Is everything still going to be cool if you go to Phoenix?
Absolutely, absolutely. That has to be put on the table. Look,
It's supposed to be a profession, and you're being paid to play, and
yes,
you can go, you can honestly try to say that to
yes.
someone, but emotions were probably still, especially at that point in time, after such a very violent and vicious series. There's still obviously a lot of hard feelings that were still very much there.
Oh, absolutely, Gerald. And it was obvious. It was obvious that for whatever reason, it just seems that Danny Ainge and Robert Ory couldn't find any closure from that situation,
No,
and
and I put a lot of that on Danny Ainge too for not, as a coach, maybe he did try to confront Robert Ory, or maybe just kept distant from him. But it's not these guys hashing it out in a room, maybe duking it out in a room, and just leaving it behind closed doors.
100%, 100%. Robert, I know you didn't like what I did, so let's talk about it and get some things off his chest. Like you said, Gerald, maybe it gets a little physical
But it's
because
behind closed doors.
yes, yes, and you leave it there. It's a clean slate. We hash it out, and it's a clean slate. We're both professionals. We don't need to be friends, but we need to work together.
Yep, you think that would have been the case, but unfortunately, it never materialized, and then it led to the situation again. Going into that situation, as far as the towel being thrown, I know at the time I was extremely surprised that that went down. I didn't know or really study up on all the circumstances I mean, I knew of the hostility in the playoff series, but remember, as a Lakers fan, I'm more concerned about the Lakers at that point in time. So I really didn't know that there was that level of hostility, but obviously that when, at the time of the benching, and obviously the disagreement that took place leading up to it, obviously there was still some real harsh words being thrown at each other.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's why, like Robert Ory will never reveal what Danny Ainge said, and a lot of people are have a certain opinion about what he might have said. I don't think he said anything in that regard, and I think everybody knows what I mean.
Yeah,
Um, I don't think it was anything.
because he hasn't even said it on his podcast, from what I've been
No,
able to
he hasn't.
research.
He hasn't. But what also needs to be remembered is that Robert Ory's environment when he grew up was very militaristic. He
Hmm.
comes from a proud military family, and normally when you're dealing with somebody who's quite literally and figuratively militant, is you don't need to walk on eggshells, and you don't need to tiptoe around things. But like you said, Gerald, you need to be upfront and just truthful. And I think if that had happened at some point in time, then TowelGate never happens. I don't think Robert Ory uh, comes to that outburst. And but like you said, Danny Ainge is responsible for his side of that situation.
Absolutely. And, great for us. That's fine by
Yes.
me. It's great for us indeed. Once again, it's Lakers History 101. I'm here with Professor Magic Man, Sean Grice. He's explaining to everyone out there the situation behind Robert Ory coming to the Los Angeles Lakers because of Towelgate and his disagreements with a coach at that time of the Phoenix Suns, aka Danny Ainge at that time. So he throws the towel in Danny Ainge's face. They have the disagreement. They have the blow up. He gets suspended for 2 days, 2 games, excuse me, 2 games. Even though he does apologize to the team, he still is persona non grata. And like you said, Jerry Colangelo ends up trading him to the Lakers. And to give you the synopsis of what the Lakers trade was, it was a four-player deal that, Cedric Ceballos back to the Suns, Ramil Robinson went to Phoenix, and then Joe Klein, who is always
Joe
forgotten
Klein.
about in the he is going to be an answer to probably a trivia question for one of our trivia shows coming up, I bet, at some point in time. Joe Klein actually was a member of the Los Angeles Lakers, which I know would surprise a lot of people out there. He went to the
Mhm.
Lakers. So with that, it's still with Robert Ory, 1996. He still finding his way. Obviously the Lakers at that point are still trying to find themselves back into a real contention. Describe to me the growth and maturation process of Robert Ory to become. Now he was already a good clutch player, a good clutch role player with San Antonio previously, excuse me, Houston previously, and also with Toronto, and then we saw what happened with Phoenix. But I want to hear your thoughts. What what helped evolve him into becoming the great clutch player that he became?
Yeah, you know what, Gerald? I think it was a
Not Toronto.
combination.
I shouldn't say Toronto. Houston, like I said. Yeah,
Houston, yeah.
yeah.
Um, his experience
Mhm.
playing with Hakeem Olajuwon, and again, we didn't see it at the time, but his experience playing with a legendary center were bore fruit. And when he was traded to the Lakers, he was inserted into the starting lineup immediately, and he played alongside Shaq. And so even before Phil Jackson had come onto the scene, Robert Ory and Shaq had already started to develop their chemistry as well. Their practice, gameplay, real situations. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Kobe Bryant is coming off the bench.
Yeah.
It's Nick Van Exel, it's Eddie Jones, it's Rick Fox, it's Robert Ory, and it's Shaquille O'Neal. So Robert is developing chemistry with both Shaq and Foxy at this point. Now, unfortunately, Eddie gets traded, Nick gets traded, so he doesn't really develop much chemistry with those two guys. Even the four of those guys on that team, in one of our favorite years, they never won a championship. Eddie Jones, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and Nick Van Exel are all stars. That was a great year, and unfortunately, Eddie and Nick had to depart. So Robert developed some chemistry with Foxy and Shaq. Now, when Phil Jackson gets on the scene, he decides, you know what, Robert, you need to come off the bench. We're going to use you off the bench because I'm going to play AC Green as a starter, but you're going to get most of the minutes. And Robert says, cool, Phil.
Because he had amount of respect for Phil because of what Phil had already achieved.
Absolutely, Gerald. And so Robert's already a two-time champion at this point. Phil respects his prowess as a big clutch shot maker, and so he's able to talk to Robert. And like you said, Robert's immense respect for him allows him to understand what his role is, and he's completely comfortable coming off the bench. No issues whatsoever.
And when he does come off the bench, does he light it up? No, but he provides a lot of different things because the one thing that he did so well is that he's a jack of all trades. You need
Yes.
someone to give you size. You need to give someone to give you rebounds that day. You need someone to give you some shots outside. You need someone to give you pretty lanky defense and great one-on-one defense at times. He could do all those things for you. And when I went back to my original statement earlier about how he was someone who I had always seen before the trade as someone who I thought had underachieved, maybe it was because of the fact that I saw him more as a role player. But then again, by the end of his career, we saw him as the ultimate role player instead.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Jack of all trades. That's a great description of the man's
He
game.
was truly a jack of all trades. He's just
He
he could have mastered some, but just never was really asked, or maybe never wanted to, or never. I think it's just his role. Again, what was asked of him by, like you said, Phil Jackson, having him come off the bench, it was never really needed for him to go ahead and give you at the level that I think a lot of people were expecting, just to give you those things that he needed in those short amount of times coming off the bench at the right time, when exactly when we needed him.
Oh, 100%. And Gerald, I think the following year, I think his friendship with Shaq and his respect for Phil Jackson also comes into play too when they bring in Horace Grant. Now, Shaq has tremendous respect for Horace,
Mhm.
and he Robert understands. Okay, Horace Grant's a starter this time around. AC was last year, and so I'm just going to do the same thing I did last year.
Okay.
And let me ask you a question, Gerald.
Of course.
Do you remember where you were when Vlade Divac back tapped that rebound and it falls into Robert Ory's hands? Tell me where you were, Podfather.
Well, I was screaming at I was at an apartment that I was with at the time, and just I was screaming to the top of my lungs as far as being able to go ahead. And actually, I'm sorry, at a condo. I was in that
Okay.
time, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, watching it on my old projection TV. Just because I thought the Lakers had all but been doomed themselves because of what went on, and a missed shot, as we've seen several times this season. But you couldn't ask for a better attempt, close in, fighting for the rebound. You've got your stars right there underneath the basket. You're hoping and you're thinking that you're going to be able to make the shot, but doesn't come through. You're thinking, oh my gosh. All of a sudden, for some reason, that still Vladivac contests that it still was the right basketball play. He tapped it out, and you're just bewildered. The whole, whether you're a Sacramento fan or whether you're a Lakers fan, you're just bewildered by what's going on. Right out to, of all people, Robert Horry just standing out there in the 3-point line, and we all know what happened next.
Oh my goodness. Not only one of the greatest role players of all time, Gerald, the basketball gods blessed him with uncanny timing.
Yes.
Uncanny. It's his timing to make clutch shots is unparalleled, and that's the icing on the cake as far as his clutch performances go. I was bewildered. That is a great word, Dean Glassford. Bewilderment. Yes. Oh my God, what is going on? And then Robert Horry catches this thing, and as soon as he let it go, Gerald, as soon as he let it go, I think most of us saw it. It was just, it's dropping. It's, come on. And it falls through, and I lost it, man. I lost it. I think neighbors down the street heard me scream as much as probably your neighbors downstairs heard you.
Yes,
Um,
yes, they did indeed.
yeah,
And
it's
go
one
ahead.
of the most elated moments I've ever had as a Laker fan. It's top 5.
Well, and I know that a lot of people have talked about the Lakers' luck, and that obviously was Lakers' luck. That ball being tipped out in the way it did, and then Robert Horry of all places is standing out there at the 3-point line. Just the timing of everything and just where people are at. He wasn't inside helping out, trying to get the ball underneath. He was actually out, at the 3-point line because that's where the play was designed for him as a fail safe in case something needed to be pitched out back to the 3-point line, and we saw what happened there. But yeah, it was just one of the most incredible sequences of basketball I've ever seen, and obviously it led to such a great and momentous event for the Lakers to go ahead and be part of that three-peat that I'm hoping that they'll be able to go ahead and revisit someday, sooner rather than later. But my friend, there's still much more to talk about when it comes to Robert Horry on today's program. Once again, it is Lakers History 101. It's Professor Sean Grice, aka the Magic Man, along with me, Mr. Dean Gerald Glassford of Lakers Fast Break University. Welcome to the class and symposium on TowelGate and how that changed the course of Lakers history. And we've talked about the trade. We've talked about the circumstances leading up to the trade. We talked about the playoff series that was affected, that caused TowelGate in the first place, but the legacy that Robert Horry, and you said there's a lot of things that place, with the Phoenix Suns, you see that they've never been able to achieve consistently that kind of success. They've reached the NBA Finals, but have never since then reached any kind of level of success that the Lakers have. You've seen, Danny Ainge, he became the general manager of Boston and then Utah. We saw what success he's achieved. He has achieved as a general manager. But with Robert Horry, it's been half kiddingly and not so half kiddingly talked about his success as a player as being one of the greatest role players of all time. And talked about as far as being him in the sense of a Hall of Fame player. Now, I don't think they'll ever, unless he's been put in as far as a veterans committee, being able to put into a place where he's going to be in a Hall of Fame, unless, like I said, it's by a veterans committee. But I don't see that happening. But your thoughts on Robert Horry, the player, and the contributions he made, not only with the Lakers, but as the NBA as a whole?
Absolute, Gerald. Spot on, Dean. Spot on. I agree 100%. I think uh, absent of a vet committee where they would recognize his efforts, his clutch performances as Hall of Fame worthy, and they are. But it's always what Kenny Smith has said. The regular season is where you make your name, and the playoffs are where you make your fame. And
And,
so,
and and when we talk about one of the clutch players of all time, it's not just the Sacramento shot, the Sacramento kill shot. That's his only legacy.
no.
There are other clutch shots that we need to discuss as well before we head on out.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Unfortunately, his relationship with us comes to an end. Um, he's a three-time champion with the Lakers.
Yeah, after 2002, 2003, he did leave to the San Antonio Spurs.
Absolutely. He wanted to be paid a little bit more money. Unfortunately, we couldn't meet his expectations, so he signs with the Spurs.
Mhm.
Now, what's interesting about this relationship is that Robert Horry comes to the San Antonio Spurs with a prime Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and a young Parisian point guard named Tony Parker.
Mhm.
And there is a moment where the Spurs and the Suns have one of the most bitter rivalries I've ever seen on a basketball court. Robert Horry finally gets to put his knife into the Phoenix Suns. He hip checks Steve Nash. Steve falls down. He looks to be hurt. And Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw decide they're going to come to their point guard's aid and leave the bench, Gerald. Now,
Mhm.
at this point in time, Robert Horry is ejected from the game. And he's suspended 2 games.
Mhm.
However, because Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw left the bench, they are suspended for a pivotal game. The Phoenix Suns had just won. It's now 2-2. It's a pivotal game 5, and Phoenix is without 2 of their best players, not just role players, their best players. And Robert Horry watches the San Antonio Spurs defeat the Phoenix Suns.
Mhm.
And they go on, and Robert Horry decides, well, I'm just going to hit another clutch final shot. Since we're playing the Detroit Pistons, I'm going to decide to put my imprint on another NBA Finals. And he does. And while he wasn't the MVP of the series, there were certain moments in that series, like he was as a Laker and previously as a Rocket, where he plays MVP worthy uh, level basketball, Gerald. He's a jack of all trades in that series, too. The Detroit Pistons are a very physical basketball team. And like you said, Robert Horry doesn't mind getting in the muck.
Yeah.
He can be as physical as he wants to be and if he
Mhm.
needs to be. And so he goes on and eventually wins 2 more championships with the Spurs. Now he's a 7-time champion.
Mhm.
And he is vaulted, as you said, Dean, into one of the greatest role players of all time because now he has 7 championships. And not only does he have 7 championships, Robert Horry led NBA Finals teams are 7-0. He's never
Mhm.
lost an NBA Finals. He didn't lose one with the Rockets. He didn't lose one with the Lakers, and he didn't lose one with the Spurs. Um, that's not even something Bill Russell can say. Bill Russell lost an NBA Finals. Robert Horry didn't.
Yeah.
Uh, and his 7 championships again. It's just bears to be repeating because of the respect. It's the most championships ever won outside of a Boston Celtic, and that's remarkable. And like you said, Dean, it's unlikely Big Shot Rob will ever get to the Hall of Fame without the help of a veterans committee. Um, but as far as I'm concerned, he's like Magic Johnson. A day after he hits the shot against the Kings, says that to him, Robert Horry is one of the top 10 clutch players in NBA playoff history.
There's no doubt about that. And
Yeah, you
and one of
know,
the things I want to ask you though is I mean, he had so many clutch shots over the course of his career. There's one though I think that you're forgetting in a pivotal series against Portland in 2002, Game 3. I've set it up for you, my friend. Go ahead and let everybody know exactly how important that was to going ahead and finishing off a three-peat, or eventually finishing off a three-peat because of his heroics late in the game.
absolutely. Well, we're down
And big shout
really.
out to Empire Jeff for bringing that up as well.
Oh, Empire Jeff. Yep, yep.
Yes, you get a little plus sign right there on your paper there on your hopefully turned in homework there for you, Empire. Great job, great job.
Absolutely. Um, Phil Jackson calls a timeout in that
Mhm.
in the fourth quarter in that game, and he says, "Okay, guys, you want to play like dog? You know what? Okay, have a good summer. See you in training camp." And he walks away. And that lights a fire under the butts of every Laker player that plays at the fourth quarter, Gerald, and that
Mhm.
includes Robert Horry. Um, Jeff's right. I didn't forget it, but it should be at the top of the list as far as the Lakers fan is concerned. That's for sure. That was one of the most.
So
Um,
lead us into that because the Lakers are down late in the game. How does Robert Ory change the course of the history and a three-peat for the Los Angeles Lakers in that series?
he comes up with a clutch performance. A clutch performance. I'm trying to see in my mind's eye.
Well, because as I'm trying to go ahead and get you the details on it, Rick Fox inbounded the ball and passed it to Kobe Bryant. And obviously everybody's thinking that Kobe's going to take
Kobe's
the
gonna take
shot.
the shot. Yeah,
Yes,
but
they double teamed him.
they double teamed him, and Roberts right there,
Hmm.
spot on, and
Right on the baseline.
he lets this thing go, and
That swept
the
at that time, like also what Empire Jeff was saying as well. It was a 5 game series, and that was for them the end of pretty much the jail Blazers, or the Blazers at that time as we knew them, because Kobe stopper Ruben Patterson and Scottie Pippen double teaming Kobe couldn't prevent
yeah, I
them
mean,
from making the right decision, getting the ball to Robert Ory, who's in
because
front of him.
you have to assume in that scenario that Robert Horry is one of the keys.
Yes.
You've already seen him make 7 big shots in the playoffs at that point in time, uh, when he's a Rocket and a Laker.
Mhm.
You have to have a key on him. And for some reason, Ruben Patterson and Scottie Pippen decide they're just going to double Kobe and live with the results. I don't think he can go back to the bench and say, you know what? We did our best there. No, you left one of the most clutch shooters of all time open.
That's true. And yeah, he's also mentioned the Detroit shot as well. So many shots that Big Shot Bob made. Good point indeed as far as the shot right there, Jeff. I do love though the Portland shot because again, of as I remember it in my mind, of like he shot that ball and made that shot,
Right off the
help
baseline.
right off the baseline, right in front of the Portland bench, as they
Bench.
were as they were getting swept by the Lakers in a 5 game series, 3 games to none. I think that was a classic one that is often overlooked in the annals of Lakers history. And I think that's something that obviously for Lakers fans is very satisfying. Like you said, Jeff, the shot in Detroit was really another one of those great clutch shots that only Robert Ory seemed to have been able to whip out of a hat at that point in time because he was just such a great clutch player. But before we head on out, my friend, we've got 10 minutes left. I got you something to think about right here. It's a pretty easy question for you. I know Joe Soro, Professor Soro, always tries to give you the tough questions or right on
Mhm.
impromptu. Go ahead, you answer this or come up with a question right now. I got a good question I want to ask you right now. Oh, as Empire Jeff's saying, I think he even turned to the Blazers bench and gave them a peace sign. Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. That's exactly what he did.
And that's
Peace.
what peace out, absolutely. And that was one of the classic Robert Ory moments. And that's one of the things that I did appreciate about Robert Ory is because he has, he played with and always had some level of moxie and some level of sharpness to him, that an edge that maybe some other players didn't have, and that helped, I think, define his career as one of the greatest clutch players in NBA history, and obviously a guy with 7 rings and a lot of jewelry to go along with it. But let me ask you this, and this is probably an easy question for you to answer, and we're under 10 minutes left. Define for me Robert Ory's role in NBA history, and would the Lakers and Spurs have that many titles today without him coming off the bench and or in some cases starting and leading the team with those clutch shots? Would those clutch shots have been made by other players in those situations?
Gerald, I'll answer the latter first and then the former last. Uh no. I think we only have 16 championships if that ball is tipped out to another player other than Robert Ory. That's just my opinion, but
Mhm.
I happen to believe in fortune and destiny, if you will, and it was fortune and destiny that Big Shot Bob was a Laker and often found himself in the right place at the right time. And you can make the same argument as a Spur. If he doesn't hit that shot against Detroit, it's very possible that Detroit takes that series. It was a very contested series between those two, and it was just Robert's ability, like you said, Gerald. I think one of the best words to describe him would be tenacious. Like you said, he could be a tenacious rebounder, tenacious shooter,
And
tenacious
also the fact
defender.
because he is 6'10", great size for someone who played the wing spots. Could even play a small ball center for you. 6'10", great length. Good one-on-one defender. Made things hard as far as challenging. And at that point in time, you're challenging a lot of shots a lot more effectively than you are in today's NBA. I really think that the Lakers would not have at least one of the championships they would have today without him. And I think a lot of it stems from that shot against Sacramento, but also because of his clutch play in other situations. You might be, if somebody said, I think the Lakers would be out 2 or 3 championships without him. If that's the case, a three-peat might be in question without some of his clutch play. I would say that, maybe you keep 1 or 2, but still, San Antonio would say the same thing. Would we have all the
Mhm.
championships there without him? And I'd say, you know what? There's a good chance that most likely you're not.
No, no, most likely you're not. That that was a other than the Lakers and Celtics, uh, of the past 25 years, that's probably the most uh physical and bitter 7-game series.
Mhm.
The series just got slowed down and bogged really down, Gerald. And the Spurs needed Robert Ory's defense as much as his shooting um, in that series, especially with a defensive player of the year, Ben Wallace. Um, for some reason, Shaq had issues with Ben in the finals.
Yeah.
When the Spurs and the Pistons met in the finals, Ben also, while it was a little different, Ben still gave Tim Duncan a hard time. And Greg Popovich said he leaned really hard on Robert Ory to really be a physical presence in that series because he needed to open up room for the Parisian Rocket, Tony Parker. If Robert Ory and Tim Duncan aren't down there, Gerald, and there's somebody else there, um, pick somebody I know, Ime Udoka beside Tim Duncan or Matt Bonner. I don't think the same results would apply. I just don't. I think Robert Ory is, and to answer the former now, he is one of the top 10 greatest clutch playoff performers in NBA history. That's written in stone.
Yeah, and he's got the jewelry to prove it. Indeed, I understand, Howard, that his play against Steve Nash is not going to go down as far as a good side or a good look for Robert Ory. I agree with you. Obviously, it led to the ramifications that it did, and then of course his situation in leaving Phoenix and how he left Phoenix was not exactly under the best of circumstances as far as TowelGate is concerned. But that's how one towel led to a fantastic clutch filled career for Robert Ory as one of the greatest clutch players in the history of the NBA. A guy with Houston, with the Lakers, and with San Antonio seemed to find success. And again, it's not a matter of luck with him. It's a matter, I think, of that's who he is in the moment. That's what he always waited for. I know a lot of people, again, like I said, still like me, felt that there could have been more to Robert Ory, but this is what he played for. This is who he was, a fantastic role player who in the clutch you could count on the most.
100%, Gerald. 100%. Branch Rickey, one of the great baseball minds, and basically built up the powerhouse Brooklyn Dodgers, once said that luck is the residue of design. And there's another quote that says men make their own luck. And I think Robert Ory's ability to just persevere through basically every obstacle he ever had to encounter as a person and a professional basketball player led to him having the confidence that he would always be in the right place at the right time, Gerald. And like you said, that's not luck. That is hard work translating into the ball finding the right energy. And it just seemed to find Robert Ory when his team needed him the most. And I think that's also part of his biography is that there is a strong current of energy that was able to be unleashed on pretty much every team he ever played with in an NBA Finals. There are only a handful of even legendary players who can make that claim.
Once again, it is Lakers History 101, and we wrap up class today by saying thank you to all the students out there for attending. I will provide notes and descriptions on some links and that you could go ahead and continue your studying of Sir Robert Ory, of 7 championships, and some great clutch moments in NBA history. So I will provide that in the description for all the audio and video listeners out there. You can go ahead and check that out as far as his clutch shots, YouTube, plus also his thoughts on the whole thing. Although what he said to Danny Ainge in regards to TowelGate, he didn't elaborate on other than to say that he wished a brick would have been in that towel along with it. And that's, I guess, the best that we'll ever get from him. Maybe down the road we'll get something a little more. But once again, it's Professor MagicMan Sean Grice, Howard Hill, Jeff, Empire Jeff, been fantastic on the show today. Truly appreciate it. Professor Sorrell could not make it, but I have asked him to go ahead and think of the next subject for our next Lakers History 101 here at Lakers Fast Break University. Hassan, big shout out to you as well. Thanks so much for watching and listening. If you like what we do, please go ahead and subscribe today, wherever you get your podcasts, or right here on YouTube, so you can get the latest notifications of when we go live on the air. But our next appearance will be tomorrow night, playback.tv/Lakers Fast Break. It's 7 p.m. for the Lakers game at home against Memphis. And then after that, of course, is the post game right here for you. It is all of us getting back together around 10 p.m. Pacific time. So looking forward to that. Professor Magic Man, any last thoughts in our final seconds?
Absolutely, Gerald. If the students want to go back, earlier in the summer, we revealed our top 10 Laker list. I sorely wanted to put Big Shot Bob on the list, but he didn't make the cut, Gerald. I had to put him at 11. I had Coop number 10. But Robert Horry is a beloved Laker in life, and eventually, when he moves on to the next world, he will always be beloved. Um, just one of the greatest clutch players of all time. And I was blessed to watch him in his prime win 7 championships, and 3 of them were for the Lakers. And I thank Robert Horry.
Well, thank you, Robert Horry, for everything that you gave as a Laker and to the NBA. And thank you, Sean, Professor, for attending today's class and holding today's class. And thank you, students of Lakers Fast Break University, for attending today's class. We will give you an A for today for attending, and hopefully you'll continue to get good grades from all of us right here at the Lakers Fast Break podcast and Lakers Fast Break Lakers Fast Break University. So for Professor Magic Man Sean Grice, it's Gerald Glassford, the Dean of Lakers Fast Break University. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Class is now dismissed.